Welcome back, everybody. KC here, KC Outside. Glad you clicked on the video. Today we're going to talk about 2022 KLR 650. I have just a little over 4,200 miles on this. I purchased it new in 2022. I've had it since. A lot of off-road riding. I'd say 50% off-road, 50% on. Today I'm just going to talk to you about my likes and dislikes on this bike, and my dislikes really are kind of nitpicking on this bike. It's not that it's anything, it's a game changer or like somebody wouldn't buy the bike, but we'll go over some things. First off, I just want to say the only issue I had with this was, of course, there was a fuel pump recall on the early bikes, 2022s. That was done very early in the first couple hundred miles. It has been good ever since. Knock on wood. Let's hope it stays that way. So I'll start with what I like about the bike. First off, of course, is the price of the bike compared to anything else. If you want to, it's hard to put this bike into a category, but it's in that like low budget adventure bike category, which there are a lot of newbies into that category. But I like the idea of the price, but I'm comparing the price to, like, say you were going to buy a Tenere or some type of KTM adventure bike, or even like the 800 CF Moto. This is still a very good buy for what you get. What do I like about this? Being you pay, sub $7,000 for this thing, usually out the door. I like the high exhaust on it. I hate the low slung exhaust on most of the adventure bikes in the class other than KTM. I do not like that. I like the high exhaust. I also like the fact, look-wise, that it comes with a high front fender on the front. I don't like the low front fender. That drives me crazy. I don't know why they do that. They should just keep them all high from the factory. Then if somebody wants to put a low one on, put a low one on. I also like the simplicity of this bike. I am not going to buy a bike. I don't want to spend extra money for ride modes. I don't want to spend extra money for traction control. I don't want to spend extra money for ABS. I don't use any of those. They're on my DRZ 4S, and I literally have tried them just to see what they were like when I first bought it, and they have not been switched on since. I don't like any of that. Not to mention, when you have all of those ride modes and all that stuff going on, it clutters up your bars with all types of switches, and then some of those bikes you have to have an engineering degree, software type degree to get everything squared away, figure out how to set it, turn it off, turn it back on again. So I'm happy with none of that. Seat on it. A lot of guys do complain about this seat, but I honestly think it's very comfortable. It has a wide profile, which also kind of falls into my dislike category, but that also helps with comfort, being the wide profile on this. And it is very wide in the front, but the positive fact of this being so wide in the front, it has great wind protection from your shins the whole way up to the top of your head. Great wind protection, especially if you're riding in colder weather, colder climates. The bike has a great amount of torque. This thing is very user-friendly to ride. You can lug it around, chug it around, kind of ride a gear high. It is awesome that way. I do love it. The ergos for me, other than the little bit of extra width that is in the seat area, the ergos on this bike are great for me. I mean, I love it. I have no complaints on that whatsoever. Another thing, when you get into these adventure categories at this stage, a lot of the bikes have tubeless. This one does not, but I don't like tubeless because you're limited in getting the more aggressive tires like I like to run on these bikes. the having to run tubeless does limit you pretty greatly in that category. So I prefer to have the standard tube in the tire. I run slime in my tires on all my bikes, so that if you do get a small like poke from, say, a thorn or maybe a screw or a nail laying on the trail, 99% of the time that slime will fill it up and you never even really knew that you had it flat. It works awesome, and it has no effect on your balancing when you're going down the road. Trust me, I've used it for years on a lot of bikes. One thing you want to keep in mind with the slime is it will break down over time. So if it was a long-term bike, you would probably want to replace the tubes and re-slime them, I would say every year or maybe every 2 years. So keep that in mind. That being said, now let's kind of step into my dislikes. And these are not, like I said, it's not this stuff doesn't drive me crazy. I'm just kind of nitpicking to tell you the things that, you know, if I could change, I would possibly change a little bit. The first thing is this comes with a 17-inch rear wheel, just like the DR650. And it's not that you ever notice it or it causes any problems, but it limits your tire choices also, because you kind of are stuck with certain tire choices. And a lot of manufacturers, if they make a 17-inch diameter tire, they will not make it in different widths. They'll give you one width, and like that's the one you're stuck with. So that is something I would basically change if it was mine. Throw on the 18-inch rear wheel, scrap the 17. Then I had mentioned about the wide seat. The wide seat profile, it does provide for a more comfortable ride on your rear end, but it takes a lot of getting used to if you're riding hard off-road, because it is so much wider than all the dual sports on the market, and probably even a lot of the lightweight adventure bikes that are out now. So it's not that disrupts your riding, but you have to get used to that feeling between your legs like that. Definitely take some time getting used to the thick chick as opposed to the skinny chicks that you've been riding. First gear on the KLR 650s has always been very long. I mean, you can put it in first gear and you can run this thing to 30 miles an hour, probably even scream it to 35 if you wanted to. And that is very long. So I do run on this bike. I am one tooth down on the counter shaft sprocket, which helps greatly with that when you're off road. And you can still go, if you need to go 75 miles an hour, you can, and you can cruise it at 65 to 70 reasonably well with that one tooth down on the front. You will get some vibes, but they're nothing to complain about. It's a single cylinder 650. You're going to get some of that. And another thing too, this bike, mine, when you bring it home, it would drive me crazy with up in the fairing here, all kind of rattling. When you hit certain RPMs, you would get like these intense rattles. And here, what that is, the clips that hold the fairings together, they're little push clips up here along the dash. And the diameter of those clips is just like thousandths of a millimeter off. The hole is a little bit bigger than the size of the clip. And what happens is that little clip that's down in the hole, it vibrates ever so slightly at certain RPMs, and it will just drive you crazy. So what I did is, I have an auto repair shop, so I basically looked through my selection of clips and found a clip that fit in much more snug and put it in, and that took care of all that rattling that I was dealing with. It was driving me insane early on. One of the last things that really I am not complaining about, but it would be nice if it had, is clickers to adjust every setting on the suspension, as a lot of bikes that are in this category above and below have nowadays. Because the front, you basically have nothing. The rear, you can adjust your preload a little bit, but that being said, this bike from the factory, if you're in like that 150 to 220 pound riding weight with your gear on, the stock suspension on this is actually really good for on the trails. Until you would start catching some air and landing hard, you will definitely notice it. And if you're on road and you're loading this thing down with a lot of luggage, you would definitely want to upgrade. Now, that being said, this bike is upgraded. It has Race Tech springs in the front and the Race Tech Adventure spring on the rear, which does make a big difference. But I will say, off-road, it tends to be a little bit stiff compared to stock, but it's perfect if you're loaded down with a lot of extra gear, and off-road, it works out perfect. I'm like 215 with gear in that area, and then, of course, with all my stuff, it is perfect for me off-road loaded up. But off-road with me without having any gear on, as far as luggage gear, it's definitely a little bit stiff if you're riding very hard and very fast. You hit some of the rough stuff, it'll be a little bit rough. You're almost better off with stock if you can handle stock and you're at a good weight range to do that. And that being said, I love this bike. I mean, I would definitely have no problem selling this or trading this in and getting another one. If you watch my channel, I'm not a big adventure bike guy. I'm a dual sport guy. I really don't do a lot of adventure riding, so I have never had a full-on adventure bike. It's just not something I do. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like this bike. It still kind of looks like just a big, thick dual sport. That is why I like this. So that's kind of why I stay with this. I mean, I test rode a T7. I test rode one of these at the dealership first. I test rode the first T7 they got in back when they released them, and I still went with this bike. It just felt better to me, and the weight is about the same on those bikes. The feel of the bikes is about the same, but you get the extra horsepower and the better suspension on the T7. But for me, for that extra $4,000, it wasn't worth it. This bike kicks it right here. This is the one to go with. So if you're thinking about getting one of these and you're on the fence, do not be afraid to get one. It is going to go everywhere that all the Triumphs, the BMWs, the KTMs, Yamaha, it's going to go everywhere those big boys do. And actually, you're probably going to do some of it better than those guys on those big, expensive, large bikes, to be honest. So don't be afraid to buy one of these. Outfit it the way you want to outfit it, and man, just freaking get on it and have a freaking great time. You're not going to be disappointed. You got proven reliability. The thing will last you forever if you maintain it. So keep that in mind. And if you like this content, like, subscribe, share, head down your dealership and pick yourself up a new KLR 650 Gen 3.